I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. All the ways to communicate with us right there at the bottom of your screen. You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com. You can use the hashtag TheStoryKGW on Twitter, or you can leave us a good old-fashioned voicemail. Just call our phone number, 503-226-5090. Well, welcome to Friday and welcome to one of our big stories. It's a significant turning point in the COVID pandemic. Tonight at midnight, the indoor mask requirement goes away in Washington and Oregon for most settings, maybe forever. Governor Brown made masks mandatory back in August 13th, on August 13th. It wasn't August of 13, that'd be way long ago. Sometimes it does feel like that, though. Now the masks are going away in less than 6 hours.
Today at 11:59 p.m., masks will no longer be required indoors in public places and in schools. That's a watershed moment in this pandemic. It's a direct result of the actions Oregonians have taken over the past 2 years.
That's Patrick Allen, the director of the Oregon Health Authority. He spoke at his first news conference in more than 5 weeks after a serious fall at his home left him battered, but obviously not broken. He said it's good to be back, and he praised Oregonians for wearing face masks, getting vaccinated, and following other health guidance during the pandemic. He said it saved thousands of lives.
As a result, we estimate Oregonians have saved approximately 5,700 lives. That's based on a projection of the additional deaths we could have recorded in our state if our death rate was the same as the national average.
Friday, 261 people were hospitalized statewide in Oregon with COVID. That's down from more than 1,100 at the peak of the Omicron surge of cases. Not everyone's looking forward to dropping the mask requirement. Some businesses say they are not ready to ditch them yet, and that is their right. At Potala Imports on Hawthorne Street, the owner said he's going to require his customers to wear masks a bit longer.
I'm thinking I will do one more week because I'm myself, little bit age. I'm 70-year-old, So it's easy to infect, you know that, right? So I will do one more week.
But many of you are excited to take the masks off. We asked what you look forward to. On Facebook, Kathy wrote, wearing lipstick. And Stacy wrote, I'm looking forward to seeing people smile again. And Ronnie added, I'm looking forward to shopping without a mask and my nose dripping while wearing the mask. By the way, don't throw the mask away yet. Oregon's epidemiologist, Dr. Dean Seidlinger, reminds us there are still plenty of settings where you will need to mask up.
Masks will still be required in healthcare settings. This is necessary to protect our providers and the vulnerable patients they serve. Federal mask requirements are still in place for public transportation and other specialized settings.
Still, outside of those places, Patricia wrote, what I look forward to the most when I finally decide to stop wearing a mask is singing. My church choir is back to rehearsing and singing in worship, but it's stifling with a mask on. Look forward to the freedom, eventually, to sing with unencumbered joy. And Linda emailed us. I wear glasses, and when I walk into the grocery, my glasses fog. If I remove my glasses, I can't see very well. The other day, I stumbled on the steps at Safeway in the fog. I am most anxious to be without a mask with fogged glasses. Lots of things to look forward to there. Now, let's get to our big story. The Portland Timbers organization is facing some harsh criticism for their handling of an alleged domestic violence case involving one of their players. A newly released audio recording suggests the Timbers may have pressured the estranged wife of the former player not to press charges. Here's Kyla Boshi.
The estranged wife of former Portland Timber Andy Polo claims the organization offered to help support her in exchange for not pressing domestic violence charges against the midfielder. And a new audio recording capturing a Timbers executive and another unidentified woman appears to bolster that claim.
Yeah, we'll try our best to get Andy to get you whatever you need. But if the DA's office, the prosecutor's office, calls you, could you let me know?
The alleged victim's lawyer, Michael Fuller, released the full 54-minute audio recording to KGW.
We thought that this recording might help explain the truth of what happened.
According to police reports, Polo was issued a citation after an alleged domestic violence incident in May of 2021. Roughly 2 weeks later, Polo's estranged wife claims Timbers representatives came to her home. We don't know who made this recording, but in it, we hear from the Timbers head of security and an unidentified woman. It's not clear who she works for. The woman describes resources available to the alleged victim of domestic violence, including transportation, shelter, and food. She also explains, through an interpreter, the charges against Polo and how a criminal case could play out or be avoided.
That goes to the district attorney's office. And then that office may call you to see if you want to pursue those charges. And again, you can say, yes, I want to, or no, I do not. Of course, we're hoping you say, no, you do not.
The Timbers declined to comment on the recording until after a review by Major League Soccer. The accusations of domestic violence led to the termination of Polo's contract by the Timbers last month. Polo's estranged wife is suing him in federal court, and today her lawyer sent a letter to the Timbers suggesting other defendants may be named, including the team, executives, or lawyers involved. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
Now, these are not the first allegations of the Timbers covering up abuse. The organization includes both the men's team and the Thorns, which is the women's team. Let's take a look back at the last 6 months. In September of 2021, The Athletic published a story detailing sexual coercion and misconduct allegations against former Thorns coach Paul Riley. 2 former players, Sinead Farley and Mana Sim, said he abused them while he was their coach. Shim reported those incidents to Thorns ownership and to Human Resources. Riley was fired, but the allegations were not really addressed. And Riley continued coaching in New York and North Carolina, and then was eventually fired in 2021 after the report came out from The Athletic. Over the last few months, Timbers and Thorns fans staged protests and boycotts. In October, the Thorns put general manager and president of soccer Gavin Wilkinson on administrative leave, but he remained general manager for the Timbers. In November, the Thorns named former player Karina LeBlanc as their new GM and former player Rian Wilkinson as their new head coach. And then in January, Wilkinson was taken off administrative leave. His GM job was gone, but he was reinstated as the Thorns president of soccer. Sports Illustrated reported the club has since adopted an anonymous reporting system and will require all managers to take annual anti-harassment training. But in light of everything we've heard from many fans saying they are canceling their season tickets. We checked with the Timbers, but they told us they don't give out those numbers. Let's change gears now and talk about fentanyl, that super powerful drug that's killing both longtime addicts and teens who are experimenting with it in our area. An Oregon City mom, part of the school board there, knows the pain that can bring all too well, and she's channeling her sorrow now into action. Here's our Maggie Vespa.
I'm trying to give parents the education so they have the opportunity to really talk to their kids and use my son's story.
Michelle Lee Stroh had never heard of fentanyl.
He was a great kid. He served in the Marine Corps.
Until it killed her son. Keaton Stroh struggled with addiction for years. One day in 2020, his mom says he bought what looked like oxy pills. They were cut with fentanyl, a cheaper, much stronger drug that experts warn is more and more making its way into counterfeit pills. Keaton died that night.
He just bought the wrong pills, and he lost his life from it.
Fentanyl deaths are spiking nationally and locally, doubling in Multnomah County between 2020 and 2021.
It's tragic, and my heart just goes out to these families.
This week, police said 2 Portland public school students died of suspected fentanyl overdoses. Police believe they took pills like these, likely sold as Oxy or Xanax. Stroh is fed up seeing families go through this pain. She's now on the Oregon City School Board and eager to get the word out about her latest work.
So on Monday, we're voting in a policy to allow the Oregon City School District to have Narcan in all of our school buildings, at transportation, and at our stadium.
Narcan is a medicine, usually a nasal spray, that can stop an opioid overdose. Stroh also wants to require parents and educators get training on how to use it and mandate overdose education. Similar pushes are popping up in school districts across the country.
Cal, as a young kid, he lived large.
The Beaverton School District had these conversations last year after Jennifer and John Epstein shared the story of losing their son, Cal, in 2020. The district launched a campaign, Fake and fatal. Today, they mandate teachers and staff learn about the dangers of fentanyl, and they require Narcan be available in every middle school and high school. A spokesperson says districts across the country are copying their work, honoring students like Cal and like Keaton.
These kids are dying from just being kids. And these aren't just addicts that are dying. These are kids that are just trying something for the first time, thinking, oh, I got it from my friend, or it's just one pill. And they're not getting a second chance for making a bad mistake.
Maggie Vespa, KGW News.
So hard to watch. And one of the nasty side effects of chronic illegal drug use can destroy your self-image and destroy all the confidence you have in yourself. Oregon Speaker of the House, one of the most powerful positions in the state legislature, is speaking out to let everyone know that it doesn't have to last that way forever. How does he know? He's lived it.
So I drank, I experimented with drugs when I should have been focused on school. And during this deeply painful period in my life, I was arrested 4 times for things like a DUI, reckless endangerment, criminal mischief. And when I got to college, I did even worse.
That's not usually what we hear from politicians, especially one in such a high-profile role. Speaker Rayfield talked about that speech he made with Laurel Porter. She asked, why share a story like this?
Frankly, sometimes watching that speech is difficult. For me, I think there was sets of failures after failures after failures in my life where you start to believe that internally that you are indeed a failure. The big turning point was trying to go to community college. And there was a period where, I remember sitting with my mom and, in tears, not knowing if I was going to be able to pass a single class. And it was those slow steps, it was passing 3 classes with C's. And, my first 4-point came in a community college class after I had already, frankly, flunked out of college the first time. I think in politics, too often we have facades up about who we are as people. I think when you lead with your values, when you lead with who you are, people understand your background. It's easier to work with folks. It's easier to trust people. I also really believe what I said is that your worst moments don't have to define who you are. Some of my best experiences as being a legislator is telling my story to students and seeing their reaction because frankly, I'm not alone. And they're not alone. And that has provided an immense amount of value to me to see other students, other kids, as they try and move forward in their own lives.
He also said it's important for him to remember his past when he thinks how differently things could have been if he was a person of color.
I saw someone in the Oregonian that almost had what felt to be very similar or identical things that I had been charged with as a youth. And this person was also a youth, and they were treated vastly different in the outcomes. And that's where looking at that to me, it was really apparent. Like, these things internally, but then when you see it in a news article, it really hits home and you feel very fortunate, but then you're also very committed to hey, the system's broken. How do you have a system that doesn't treat people with such drastic disparities?
You can watch Laurel's entire interview with Dan Rayfield. That's tonight at 7 on Straight Talk. They also talk about the session that just ended and where the state is going to be spending a ton of money. Our justice system is backlogged. Our jails have become a revolving door. And that means people who commit crimes are being released before they can be prosecuted. The reason?
It's everything. It's the pandemic. It's staffing shortages. It's lack of resources.
One huge problem, not enough public defenders.
Cases have been dismissed because of the lack of representation, because it is constitutionally required.
When the story continues. Welcome back. Keep sending your questions and comments. And by the way, we want some specific comments. We want to know what you think about downtown Portland. We're going to do a story on that probably Monday this coming week. We'd love to know whether you feel safe there. Do you work there? Do you think city employees should be coming back to their offices sooner there? They're not going to come back till maybe mid-April. Let us know your thoughts. You can email us at the story at kgw.com or give us a call. Leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. All right, moving on. Let's talk about a revolving door in our jail system. One that some say puts suspects back out on the streets far too quickly. In some cases, they go on to get arrested again, sometimes within days. Catherine Cook looked into what's going on and discovered there is a big problem jamming up the justice system.
The city of Portland is growing, recovering, and in many ways, thriving. It's also dealing with a lot of crime. From stolen cars and graffiti to gunfire and more homicides than the city has ever seen. Some people arrested are repeat offenders. Take the suspect in last month's kidnapping case in Northeast Portland. Justin Emmanuel Hill is accused of stealing a car with a 3-year-old in the back seat. Court records show that when Hill was arrested, he had several open charges, including 3 car thefts in the last year alone. It begs the question, why are chronic repeat offenders allowed to walk in and out of jail before their trial, often putting the public at risk? A peek at the presiding judge order offers the short answer. Suspects are evaluated on risk, but typically only the most serious felony charges keep people in jail pre-trial. It took a kidnapping charge to keep Hill behind bars. For others who don't meet that criminal threshold, it's usually back on the street.
We can't keep people in jail prophylactically. It would be a constitutional violation of their rights.
This case does.
Cheryl Albright is chief criminal judge for Multnomah County Circuit Court. She points out the system has always worked that way. What's different now is the wait between arrest, release, and trial is longer.
It's everything. It's the pandemic. It's staffing shortages. It's lack of resources. You can't keep someone in custody for an extended period of time without a court-appointed attorney. That just is a constitutional crisis.
Which brings us to perhaps the most complicating factor of all right now in Oregon's criminal justice system: a shortage of public defenders and extreme case overload.
There are maybe 150 people or so who have been arraigned in the last several weeks who have not been able to receive appointed counsel because we don't have enough court-appointed attorneys to appoint them.
Cases have been dismissed because of the lack of representation, because it is constitutionally required.
Carl McPherson is executive director of Metropolitan Public Defender, the state's largest provider of public defense services. On Monday, they started a 4-week pause on accepting new felony or misdemeanor appointments in Washington County, except for existing clients. And in Multnomah County, they haven't been accepting new minor felony appointments since January 10th. For reference, most auto thefts are minor felonies.
We do the work because we want to help people, and to know that there are people who are not receiving our services or our help is extremely painful for everyone doing the work.
McPherson says pausing on new cases wasn't a choice. He cites a 2007 Oregon State Bar opinion. It says they must refuse to accept a workload that prevents them from meeting their ethical obligation to each client. McPherson says attorneys are already working 40 to 60 hours a week on current caseloads.
It's not justice to assign an attorney to a case that they don't have the time to actually invest in representing that individual.
According to McPherson, this problem had been brewing long before the pandemic and will take years to fix. He points to a national study by the American Bar Association. Based on caseloads of the last 4 years, it found Oregon has 31% of the public defenders needed to represent clients, a deficit of 1,296 lawyers. Recently, Oregon lawmakers earmarked $12.8 million for the Office of Public Defense Services. That's enough for 36 more lawyers.
So 36 more lawyers is 2.7% of what we actually need, but it is at least a step in the right direction.
It's a long and complicated answer to what many perceive as that revolving door justice system, a system that, like the scales of justice, is striving for stability.
And so we're trying to balance a system that's not currently balanced.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
All righty then. Still springing forward this weekend. Remember that? Even though Oregon and Washington voted to get rid of it time and again, the time still is going to change. What's the holdup with stopping the time change? Well, you can blame Congress. We'll explain coming up next. Well, Welcome back. How you feeling about this daylight savings thing? Do you like it? Stays lighter longer, but we're going to lose a little bit of sleep. And whether you like it or not, we're all going to do it on Sunday. Prepare to lose that sleep. And it brings us to the viewer question that we get twice a year without fail. Katie wants to know, what ever happened to not having to change our clocks? I have a feeling a lot of you are wondering that too. It is complicated, but let's break it down and make it simple. We're all familiar with our twice annual cue to spring forward or fall backward. But didn't Oregon and Washington get rid of this? Yes, we'll get to that. So why are we still changing the clocks, and how did we get here? Well, back in 1966, Congress passed the Uniform Time Act, establishing daylight saving time nationwide. By the way, it is saving, not savings. Oregon was already on board back then, having done the same 4 years before that. The idea to turn the clocks forward 1 hour on the last Sunday in April and then turn them back on the last Sunday in October. Basically, it lets humans make better use of daylight as the sun rises and sets later and later throughout the summer. The official time change happens at 2 a.m. when most of us, hopefully, are asleep. In 2005, Congress extended the daylight saving time window, scheduling us to spring forward in March and fall back in November. Well, a lot of people find these frequent time shifts kind of annoying. Some states like Arizona don't observe daylight saving time at all. In 2019, Oregon and Washington decided to take a page out of their book. But lawmakers instead passed a bill to keep both states on daylight saving time all year round. In other words, the schedule we use during the summer would become our schedule all year. But, and this is key, none of us can actually make that switch yet. Because for that to happen, we need approval from Congress and the president. In short, we're stuck in legislative limbo, waiting on D.C. However, Washington State Senator Patty Murray is now sponsoring a bill called the Sunshine Protection Act to make daylight saving time permanent all across the country. So we'll see where that goes. And that's how we got here. And now you know. Hey, for this week's Hey Help campaign, we're asking you to donate to the KGW Great Food Drive. There are plenty of ways to help us reach our goal of providing 1.2 million meals to local families. We're almost halfway there. You can make a donation at any branch of Rivermark Community Credit Union. And all this week, local Toyota dealers will match the first $10,000 donated. To see all the ways that you can give, or if you need assistance, go to kgw.com/food drive. And we want to thank our partners, Pacific Office Automation, Toyota, Rivermark, and Safeway, for supporting this year's food drive. Keep sending your questions and comments to thestory@kgw.com. When we come back, a bit of good news. Since it's Friday, let's talk about some good news. There's plenty of bad stuff happening in the world, but even more good stuff happening. This is our segment where we ask you, what's your good news? Here's what Warren had to say.
I would have to say that my wife is feeling better and looking good, and that makes my heart feel good.
Good on you, Warren. We're all happy for you. If you have some good news, shoot a clip of yourself sharing that and then send it to us. The email is thestory@kgw.com. If the file is too big, which often happens, just send us an email explaining that, and I'll send you one back with a solution. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. But remember, the story, our story, that never ends. I'll see you Monday.
This is KGW News at 6:30.